I'm going to get to the meat and potatoes. Please don't get seasick if I zip through some of these slides. Everything that you have that we've talked about, if you don't have one of the books, Confrontational Politics, make sure you sign the Gun Owners California sign-in sheet over there, and I will send you one. If you're a member of a Tea Party group or an organization, and you think that there are other key leaders who will read this and can benefit from this, write down a number as to how many books I need to send you. Usually, they cost us $3 to do, but for you folks who have taken your time to come here and be a part of leadership and learn what it takes to be effective against the leftists, we're going to go ahead and eat the cost. So Gun Owners America already paid for them anyway. So please be realistic in the number of books that you can use, because we're using them like hotcakes for leadership at Tea Party groups throughout the state of California. And I got to come up with a whole bunch of them here for Placerville, who has 1,000 people show up on Tuesday night, and Auburn that has 250. And I'm only giving them the 1-hour job. Making lemons out of lemonade. Making lemonade with rough hands. That is it. We must learn to peek behind the verbal glitz and glitter that covers any new humanist cause. You know, all of the stuff that they try to pass off to America is this, you know, save the spotted owl, and you know, clean air, clean water, clean chickens, clean eggs, you know, pure milk, organic milk, tofu, whatever it is that they're picking. You know, it's always this neat media stuff that they do, but what's behind is what's important. Why? In order to discover that they're really promoting what they're really promoting, and to be able to take advantage of them. Often what they say isn't what they mean, nor is it what they are attempting to do. Surprise! You know? The Trojan horse was really left there by a bunch of Democrats. What's that? The witches of Macbeth. That's true. Look hard enough and long enough, and the true hypocrisy shows through. Do we need to explore that? No. We just need to ask Toto to pull the curtain away from the man behind the curtain with all the knobs and the switches and stuff. We always have to be looking at what's behind what they are doing publicly. Once we understand that, we know how to fight them. Okay, I do have to talk about this. Here's a good example, the spotted owl. Several years ago, the radical environmentalists announced the spotted owl was an endangered species. They immediately took the high road shouting, "Save the owl." We all remember that, right? Yes. As a matter of fact, it basically wiped out the timber industry in Northern California, put tens of thousands of families out of work, tens of thousands of small businesses who supported the timber industry out of work, and destroyed the ecology and the economy that existed in Northern California, which was their intention. They centered the entire debate around the owl's potential extinction, and placed the blame on those greedy lumbermen who preferred wealth to the future of this rare and jeopardized bird. The lumber industry reacted like most confused, non-confrontational businessmen, and accepted the false premise, allowing the whole dispute to be focused on the owl being endangered. That was their mistake, thereby preordaining their eventual defeat. They were trapped, framed, snookered into a "when did you stop beating your owl" issue. Okay? The environmentalists demanded that those who owned the valuable timberland to set aside vast tracts of harvestable forest as usual. They advanced their causes with other people's dimes, not ours. Okay? In other words, they filed lawsuits, which they got money from, and they forced the timber workers out of the woods. The environmentalists demanded those who owned the valuable timberland to set aside vast tracts, The radical left saw a ripe opportunity for political growth in their environmental numbers in government by jumping on this particular cause. As usual, following on the heels of the attack, legislation was introduced. In other words, you couldn't clear cut. You had to do timber harvest plans with taking the spotted owl into consideration, which in essence killed all timber harvest plans. Facts now show that the bird was never in jeopardy, but at the time the little hooter was reported to be down to their last hoot. As long as the timber people argued whether or not the owl was endangered, the industry was destined to lose. The owl's endangered. Oh, not really. Not really endangered. There's still some out there. They're lost. At that point, they're arguing on the wrong playing field, on the wrong battlefield. The left knows that factual data often fails when pitted against organized deceit. That's interesting, huh? Whether the owl was endangered or not was never the real question or the real concern. It was just another good reason to expand the power of the environmental cause, a real win-win situation for the lefties.
Well, when it's advertised and publicized as the owl, then what tack should they have gone? I mean, you can't say then, well, that's not your real issue, it's the timber that's your real issue.
They shouldn't have gotten into this, well, we need to do a study to see how many owls there really are out there, and what trees that they're in, and what size trees, and the age of the forest, and all of that stuff. They should have said, no, they are not endangered, and you prove that they are. And then when they come out with their lies, then you debunk them. That's the fight. But instead, they got into they got in a defensive position instead of throwing it back on their ground. The environmentalists knew that the industry was going to react this way. That's why they picked this fight.
So, Sam, there was a good example in Chico a while back when somebody went up and looked at the vernal pools along the highways, and they found these fairy shrimp. Okay, and they decided that the fairy shrimp were an endangered species, so they shut the guy's pastures off. He couldn't graze on it. He couldn't do anything with it, although he had to pay taxes on it. He couldn't use it. It's still his property, but he couldn't do anything with it. 10 years later, the pools are dead because the fairy shrimp were actually feeding on the cattle waste.
That's what I say. Why I say they can take mud holes and swamps, and they call them vernal pools and wetlands, and make political issues out of them. Because we are in the wrong argument with them. We get defensive with them. We tell them that, no, there are owls in these woods, and we're only cutting these types of trees and all of this stuff. You've already lost. You're disarmed. Because they can lie better than you. That's what we have to say. You're wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Prove it. As a matter of fact, if they were smart, they would have gone to every existing clear cut in Northern California and found that there were fully viable populations of spotted owls in every clear cut in Northern California. That's right. And then they should have known better when they saw that there were some fish and game biologists who were taking bird feed into the woods to feed the spotted owls to come into certain parts of the area. That's an absolute fact. Yes, ma'am.
I think custody maybe can say, no, you're wrong, prove it. But my neighbor's been on me about having a lawn, unsustainable and all of these things. And it's a little hard in the face of a neighbor to say, you're wrong, prove it, for fear, what if I'm wrong? So
They're arguing about you having a lawn?
yes, yeah, about lawn. By petrobiochemicals, water wasted, and all this. So what do you say?
What I would say to my neighbor.
Yes, Sam, what would you say to your neighbor?
What I would say to my neighbor is, launch. First, I would go back into the house, and I would take my legally carried concealed weapons permit out of my belt and put it there. Then I would come out and say, you know what, this is my property. I'm going to do whatever I want with my property. It is within my God-given rights to do it, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can argue all you want. But this is what's going to happen. If you don't like it, come.
Move. Don't look.
And then that's, if we live in a free in America, you are free to leave, but you are not free to impose upon me your will in my property. In the finest Christian sense. You don't have to be nasty, you don't have to be mean, you don't have to yell.
Why does it say anything?
Yeah.
What's the problem?
That's
That's the problem.
Lock and load. And then I would walk back inside and put my concealed weapons permit back on and just smile. Okay, they judged correctly that the strength would increase through the confrontation, the libs did, with new recruits, and they gathered around the motherhood owl debate. The left properly surmised that the lumber industry would respond like Pavlov's dog. They predicted how the industry would respond, and they did just that, so they continued. They fell right into their trap. What could have the lumber industry done? What could they made lemon and lemonade? And here's what they could have done. Had they right away understood the political implications of this thing and what the humanists were doing, they could have very easily organized political action committees. This is one case where they could have gotten the Teamster Lumberjack Union together. They could have gotten the truckers, the timber haulers together. They could have gotten the furniture manufacturers, the wood chippers, the paper manufacturers, all of the people who are the end users of the product that they create. All of the dimensional lumber mills, and put them together into a political action committee and spent money against anybody who tried to pass a law on this issue. It wouldn't matter what the environmentalists said. Remember, they try to impose their will by legislation. They pass a bill or they file a lawsuit. So you turn around and you put these interests together and you file your lawsuit.
You get a public relations firm out there to show how many jobs would have been lost.
You know, absolutely, yeah. It should be easy for them to have done this had they said, we're going to fight, we're not going to stand here and defend ourselves, we're going to fight. Because this is an absolute, total, bald-faced, unadulterated lie. Yes?
Are we getting this? Is our side getting this? Are we finally waking up to the fact that we're always on the defensive? Always, I mean, it's like we're always caught flat-footed. And we never have a good response. Generally, is it changing?
That is a great question. Are we getting it? Is our side getting it? Do you know how we're getting it? We're at the beginning of getting it. We have finally had so many people's rear ends singed that they're finally standing up and saying something about it, saying enough is enough. And it's happening from the bottom up. It isn't happening from the big businesses and stuff like that. They're complicit in a lot of this garbage. They're at the public trough in DC and Sacramento getting their government subsidies or their government handouts, or they're dependent upon their business for building the roads, and they have to get the money from the government to stay in business and all of that stuff. They're not the ones who are going to lead this thing. The people that are starting to get it are the people on the ground who are losing their jobs, losing their homes, losing their businesses, losing their health care, are upset about what their kids are learning in school, are upset about losing their guns, are upset because they're being told they can't be in the woods hunting and fishing, are being told that you can't buy ammunition, you can't buy guns, you can't drive a car that's a hot rod if you want. It's a bottom-up thing that's happening. That's the phenomenon of the Tea Party movement. I talked to Senator Richardson 2 days ago, and he said he's absolutely blown away that it's happening in his lifetime. That there's finally a rising giant that is starting to get it. And as the small businesses and the small employers that are involved on the ground level of the Tea Party are affected, and that is a trickle-up impact, you'll see that some of these bigger businesses will start to get it. Yes?